Okay, we've got a lot of questions to cover, several weeks worth. We're going to do these 1 week at a time so we can get ourselves caught back up. These are from May 19th. The 717 service, there's two questions. One is, what is the meaning to God changing names? And the examples we're given were Sarai and Sarah and Abram and Abraham and Jacob to Israel. There's other examples too, even in the New Testament, where in the case of Simon, he becomes Peter. All of these are because in the Jewish culture, names bore a ton of meaning. And so what your name was really bore weight as to your life and ministry. So in the case of Jesus himself, Yeshua, which means God or Yahweh saves, his name was directly connected with his ministry. In the case of Daniel, my name, it is a Hebrew name, and it means God is my judge. El is the name for God, so Daniel ends in El. The little I almost functions like the word is, and Dan is for judge. God is my judge. And so another example would be Elijah, where Elohim is Yahweh. And his name was appropriate because he was dealing with a lot of individuals that had embraced Baal and Asherah worship and a lot of pagan stuff from the Phoenicians. And so because of that, his name Elijah, it was relevant because his name was directly related to his ministry of calling Israel back to the worship of the one true God, Yahweh. And so the names in Hebrew have great meaning to them. In the case of Abram, High Father, his name was changed to Abraham, which means father of many. And you can notice the irony of that because you remember that he was barren, or that Sarah was barren, and he was unable to have kids. They have that situation with Hagar where he gets Hagar pregnant and they have Ishmael. But then God overcomes Sarah's barrenness, and when they bear the son Isaac, which means laughter, because Sarah laughed when God announced the birth of this child when she was 90, that she would have a child in her 90s. It made her laugh. So the name of the child, Isaac, means laughter. And so all of these names bear weight. Jacob's name was Supplanter, because you remember when he was born with Esau the twin, he was grabbing hold of his ankle, tripping Esau on the way out. And he wound up living his life that way, ironically, to his name. You remember he twice trips up Esau, once over a bowl of lentil soup and then once over the patriarchal blessing. He trips up Esau by tricking his own father. And so his name bore that meaning. And so in the very end of his life, God changes his name to Israel. And so the name change means you're no longer a supplanter. You're no longer a tripper up of other people. And so all of these things have meaning. And so in the name of Simon, changed to Peter, is because of that great declaration in Matthew chapter 16. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus says to Simon Peter, upon this rock I will build my church. But in the process, Jesus changes his name. You are no longer called Simon, you are now called Peter. So names bear a great deal of meaning in the Bible. And so when names are changed, it's because God is redirecting that person's path. And so sometimes the names given from birth stick with the child with significance, like Elijah. Sometimes the name is changed later by God because of a significance of the ministry he's called them to. Great question. Most of our names today, just because they sound, a lot of times because they sound cool, or they're in the Bible, or they made the top 10 list of baby names for 2014. And that's all fine. But in Jewish cultures, you were named by meaning. Just imagine for my name, if your name was Daniel, when it was late at night and you needed to come home from playing with your friends, your parent would step out on the front porch and yell, God is my judge, God is my judge, come home. But that bears a bit of weight to it, doesn't it? And so you're like, wow, yeah, God is my judge. I wonder if that affects the way I respond to my parents to come home when they call my name. So there's a lot of meaning to Jewish Hebrew names, and I think that's why God used names the way he did and changed them the way he did. The next is a question about a video on YouTube, and I did watch it. I didn't watch all of it. It's over an hour. I watched good portions of it, and the man makes some good points, but some of the things in the video are things that I think are right. right. Historically, both Christmas and Easter have both Christian connections, but they also have some connections within the pagan cultures of which those holidays were initially formed. For instance, Christmas on December 25th was a random selection by a Christian emperor, and he selected it because winter solstice was a very festive time of year for that part of Europe. And because of that, he basically said, let's change the festive celebration that was pagan and make it a festive celebration that was Christian. And so a few of the traditions from that pagan side of things slide into the Christmas celebration within the church. Things like decorating a tree and things like that. I don't know that that makes decorating a tree at Christmas explicitly pagan, because there wasn't anything explicitly pagan about it. It was more festive than anything. But I understand that man's caution over that, and the church should be careful about those kinds of things. Easter also, though, I think he oversells the statement a little bit about Easter. The way that resurrection celebration after Passover became known as Easter is not because of the celebration of the pagan worship of Easter, but because a monk during that time period said, in the time of Easter, in other words, when the pagans are celebrating this time of thing, this is also the time of Passover. So it'd be more like saying, we're going to celebrate Easter in the month of March. This is not because we're worshiping Mars. It is because that's the month on the calendar. Any more so than, we're going to celebrate something in, pick a month, June or something like that, and the pagan connections with June, we're not necessarily worshiping anything to do with that. Or the fact that we worship on Sunday, we're not worshiping the sun, or if a church meets on Saturday, they're not worshiping Saturn. So there's a little bit of oversell there, but he's right in that there's some pagan connections to some of these Christian celebrations, because at the time they came into European prominence, there were a lot of paganism, and as the pagans kept coming or swept into Christianity, what happened is that a few of the traditions from those pagan cultures, a lot of them were jettisoned, but a few of them got melded in with Christianity. Is that great? No, it's not great. But here we sit now 1,000+ years later, and our culture doesn't know any of those connections. No one's sitting around going, hey, that was a 9th century German pagan celebration. We shouldn't do that. It's been reconstituted at this point, so I'm not getting too bent out of shape over that. Nor do I think the church should. Some of the other things he said are true, and then there's some things that I think maybe a little bit of leap. But it was interesting. It was engaging. So yeah, I appreciate it. It's interesting watch. All right, I think those are the 2 questions from this week, and we'll see you guys at 7:17.